All right, we're back. We are GAME 2015 in the winter 2018 semester. It's week 6, part 1 of our broadcast. We're talking about Blender organic modeling today. Now, this is a little bit different. But first, before we get into that, administration, some admin for today. Remember that your Lab 4 assignment, which is your first playable build, and your game design document version 2, that's due tonight by midnight, as well as the assignment portion. They're both worth 5%, so tonight is worth 10% of your final grade. Part of it is going to be the stuff you're doing for me. Part of the stuff is what you're doing for Elir and Agile. So please have that all in up on Blackboard as soon as possible. Okay, that's what's happening today. 2 weeks from now, you should be starting your second iteration or second sprint today. And 2 weeks from now, we'll have another one. And every 2 weeks from there on, there'll be another iteration and another build and so on. Remember that next week we'll be doing peer review, so I will put up the peer review form. Okay, that's it for a minute. Let's get into Blender. So again, if you have to download Blender, it's cool. I've already got one kind of version of it from this morning, the stuff that I was trying to do. It worked for the most part. Every time I do it, slightly different. So hopefully we'll see how it goes with your attempt. So there's a couple of things I'm going to assume now. I know assuming is bad, but let's assume some stuff. I will assume that you know basics of how to navigate in Blender at this point, right? Yeah. We've done a few tutorials in Blender, so you should know how to do basic things. I'm going to assume you have some rudimentary knowledge of Unity at this point too. You know, most of you should have it already. But some of you don't know how to do things with Unity 3D as much as you do in 2D. For example, one thing I'm going to be asking you to do today is animate in 3D, right? So you may not have had any kind of exposure to that. I'm going to be using the animator in Unity to do that. But first, we're going to build our organic model in Blender. When I say organic, I'm really loosely talking organic. Today, we're just going to make an ugly head and a creature. So this will be the first of some other tutorials we'll do in Blender where we do more organic modeling. It's not the easiest thing to do, guys, because to make something look realistic takes a lot of work. So first, let's talk about some basics again. I'm going to use this cube. This is what we're going to start with, this little cube. I'm going to make a very ugly creature with this cube. So we're going to go into, I'm going to tab into edit mode here. And I'm going to subdivide my cube a bunch of times. In fact, I'm going to subdivide it 5 times. So let's go to 5 times. If you notice, when I do this, and I'm just going to pull up my keyboard for this. Again, I'm using the Mac today, so I have a little mini numeric keypad, and it helps from a Blender perspective because the last thing you need is not to have a keypad in a numeric keypad for Blender. All right. Sorry?
How do you change the perspective?
You can do that with View. So if you go to View, right, you can go to, here's all the different ones, left, right, back, front, and so on, right? That's how you do it. So, but if you have it, you can go, I want to go to the front. And for now, I want to go into orthographic mode, so completely flat looking, the camera projection that's happening right now. I'm going to scroll in so that you can, or zoom in, and so you can see that there are 6 divisions by 6 by 6. And what I want to do is I want to go into wireframe mode. Again, I'm in edit mode right now. I'm going to deselect all by pressing the A key. I'm going to select box select with the B key, so B to box select. I'm going to select half the left geometry, right? And what I want to do is I want to, now there's a couple ways to do this. One way I could do this is press X to delete faces. And what that'll do is it'll delete half the faces in the model, as well as half the vertices and so on. Okay, so that's what I've done. So I've deleted half the model. And why are we doing this? Because we're using organic modeling. I'm going to be using what modifier? The mirror modifier, right? And the way to do that is on the right side here. So I'm going to go to the right side of the screen. There we go. Notice there's this a group of tabs here. Again, the first one I want to mess with is this one, the third one from the left, where I change the unit presets to meters. because it's going to be more compatible with Unity. And then I'm going to change this. I'm going to go to the wrench, and I'm going to go add modifier, and I'm going to go to mirror. And what happens is it adds this phantom geometry on the left. Okay. I also want to turn clipping on because I don't want the middle to be disrupted, the middle of my model right here across the where I'm mirroring. And what I want to do is, sorry, I'm just going to move this back so I get more real estate here. What I'm going to be doing today is we're going to be doing some things with a new add-on called Loop Tools. Loop Tools. And you can, this is built into Blender. You can turn it on by going to File, Preferences, User Preferences. If I'm looking at add-ons, and if I put Loop as a search, please have this add-on installed or checked on. Everyone has it. You just have to check it on, right? And then save user settings, please. Save user settings. And that'll make sure that every single time you use Blender, you'll have that add-on available, all right? As long as it's Blender been installed on the machine in front of you. Again, what I said before was it's better for you guys to have your own machine if possible, more control, but if you don't have access, it is what it is. All right, I'm going to press the Z key here, so I'm going to bring back solid mode so you can see what's happening, right? And when I am mirroring, you can see that I have geometry on the right side, but no geometry effectively on the left side. Left side is being generated for us, right? I'm going to go back into perspective mode so I can see what it's going to really look like, my little object here. And what my plans are is I want to make this cube into a head that has arms sticking out of the side. So instead of ears, it has arms. And out of the bottom, it's got legs. So a head with legs and arms, right? A really scary creature, all right? We'll do more of this kind of stuff later. I just want to start off with some techniques for organic modeling. That's what we're talking about today. And part of it is, we've actually used this already before, called proportional editing. Proportional editing is what I want to focus on today. All right, so we've got our object. I want to put some eyes over here. I could do more subdivisions, but I find then you'll have too much geometry, and then it's difficult to come out of that. So I want to press Control R. We talked about this last time, which is I want to make an edge loop here. I want to put one up here. This is where the eyes are going to go. Control R again. I want to put another one over here. So I'm subdividing these areas. And another one over here, Control R. And I want to put another one over here, Control R. So you can see that I've got more geometry now on this side. One more, I think I did it kind of differently this morning, but I'll do something different this time. So I'm kind of slicing up this geometry a little bit here, but mostly in this area. Okay, so it's not like there's not extras. I have more control when I do it this way, okay? All right, so I have this area that I have potentially for some kind of eye. I want to make the eye kind of appear right about here on this outer part. So what I'm going to do, and just to kind of indicate what I have here, there's enough space where I can probably embed the eye one in, like in here, right here. So that's what I'm going to start to. I'm going to kind of select these verts. And what I could do without organic modeling is kind of press the S key and scale in. You can see that it can kind of becomes a little bit more rounded, right? When I do this, it looks rounded, the eye, right? Alternatively, I'm just going to do that. Alternatively, you can turn proportional editing on by pressing the O key. I press O for proportional editing, and if I do that again, I have this big circle. Now, if I'm not careful, it'll do one of these. It'll actually scrunch down the whole model, right? So this is what proportional editing does. It has an influence. The circle is an influence on areas that I want to modify, right? So this is what it does. So I can decide how much influence it has by increasing the diameter of this circle here.
And it's the vertices inside the circle
that are influenced.
So if they're outside the circle, they are
not influenced, right? So as you can see, I can make it even rounder, right, by doing this way. So I'm kind of making it the same size. I'm left-clicking now to accept. So I got this rounded area of verts. One of the things also that's happened is, as a result of this, is this rounded area has presented me with a bunch of edges that are also in a rounded shape, right? So theoretically, I did this a little differently this morning. If I press Control-Tab and go into Edge Select mode, and I select this edge, and as an example, I kind of select the edges around here like this. You can see that I've got this rounded shape here, right? This rounded shape. And this kind of rounded shape, this is one way of doing it. What I want to try and do is make this into an eye that I'm going to kind of make it look a little bit more rounded. Like right now it's very flat. If I turn it to the side, you can see that there is no round shape to this thing. It's just purely flat, right? So I need to think about ways of making this round. And one way to do it is, again, to use proportional editing, but to use a center line here and a center line here across the eye. So I'm going to add more geometry by making more cuts. So another one in here. And I'm going to put another one in the middle of this eye. So you can see that I'm only adding the cuts where I need them, right? I'm going to Control Tab into Vertex Select Mode. Select the middle vertex here, making sure that proportional editing is on. Again, you can turn it on or toggle it on and off with the O key. And the way to know that it's on is on the bottom here. This, when it's blue, it's proportional editing is on. Then I'm going to use my this manipulator arm, the green manipulator, which is going to pull everything across the y-axis. And I'm going to kind of pull this out like this. Okay, so you can see that if I increase the influence, it'll pull more out. If I decrease the influence, it'll just work on the area that I'm working. So I just want to make this a little bit more rounded. All right, that's nice. I have a rounded, kind of rounded area of eyes, but I want to recede these into the head, and the way to do that will be to, again, I'm going to go into Face Select Mode, Control Tab into Face Select Mode, select all the faces in the eye, and what I want to do is I want to extrude. Press the E key and press Enter immediately. And what this does, again, just a reminder, I'm going to do this a bunch of times today. E and then Enter. When I press Enter immediately, it actually duplicates my geometry on top of the geometry I already have. And what this does for me is it allows me to press E again. And then if I can pull it out, like eye stalks, or I can pull it in, which is what I want to do, to kind of make the eyes seem like they're spheres that are inside the face. Okay, it's just the effect I want. All right, so I've got these eyes that are inside this weird face, right? And I want to now make the center line for the nose, right? So I want to select the verts, Control Tab back into Vertex Select Mode, and I want to select the verts that are going to make up the nose. So I'm going to kind of make this part here, select all these center vertices up to about right here, okay? And I'm going to, if I use proportional editing mode, it'll actually modify everything, which is not what I want. So notice how if I did that, it also affects the geometry around here, right? Like it even pulls up the eye a little bit more. So that's not exactly what I want. So I want to turn proportional editing off. So press the O key. And then I want to pull up this center line by itself with no influence. Okay. Now, one thing that does happen that I'm annoyed about is this part, right? So if I undo that, maybe it would benefit me to have another cut up here so it wouldn't influence this whole piece. So I'm going to do that. So Control R. And I'm going to put this kind of down here, almost like a bridge line, an eyebrow ridge right here. This is the part that I'm going to put my eyebrow, or maybe somewhere around here. But it'll stop here. The nose doesn't have to stop at the top of the head, or start at the top of the head. So I'm going to kind of get just at the top of my eyes. We'll just do that again. Yeah, so we'll kind of do one of those. And again, all I want to do is pull it out at this point, just so that there's some kind of indentation for the nose, or extrusion for the nose. All right, this is cool, but I have some areas down here that I want to pull up because I want to put a kind of a lip underneath the nose, or kind of an area that's the nose curves down. And so what I want to do is I want to select these verts down here. And now I do want to make it organic, so I'm going to press it organic, right? And if I pull them up, you can see what they're going to do is it's just going to pull up those to make an area that looks like more of a nose. Okay, so there we go. I also want to use organic mode to pull this part back in to the face, right? Because this is like not exactly what a nose looks like. So kind of like this. Okay, I want to take organic mode off, press the O button, and then just hit the last vertex of the nose and use the Y manipulator arm just to pull the nose out, so it kind of looks a little pointy. And if I want more geometry, which I would for the nose, I can press Control R again and add some geometry closer to the sides of the nose, as well as closer to the top of the nose to make it a little sharper. What I mean by that is you want to kind of try and pull these verts off a little bit. So I'm going to click this. I've got organic mode off. I'm going to turn it back on. And this time I'm going to pull these verts across to make it a little bit wider and flatter as I'm starting to make my face look the way I want. All right, we got some area down here that's a little bit weird, right, for the mouth. I want the mouth to be down here now. So what I want to do is I want to grab some of these, but I want to turn organic modeling off again, O, and I want to move these in a line, so kind of move them up in line with the nose. So I want to grab this one a little bit closer anyway. So I'm just using basically the manipulator arms just to move this edge up a little bit. And this one too. Doesn't have to be perfect, but what I want to do is I want to put the lips down here now, and I need more geometry for that, right? So I'm going to go Control R. I'm going to cut that in there. I'm going to put the bottom edge or the top edge of the lip here. I'm going to put Control R. I'm going to put the bottom edge of the lip down here. Control R. I'm going to put the middle part of the lip where it separates the top and bottom lip. Control R. I'm going to put another cut so that the top lip is here. Another cut on the bottom lip. And the reason why I'm putting all this geometry is so I can round it off, right? So more cuts, one at the top here. And one at the bottom here. And what I want to do is I want to present some more geometry over here so I can do more cuts on this side. So another cut. All right, good. So that gives me enough to start working with the lips, the lip area, right? I also need some middle cuts for the lips, so I can pull it up there and there. Now, if you can't see what I'm doing or you can't envision what I'm going to do, right, think about, I want to make the mouth. So this is the bottom of the lip here, and I want to pull this up. Now, this is a great place to use organic modeling again, or organic proportional editing, because what I want to do is I want to select these verts first, and I want to scale across the z-axis, right, like this. That's what I want to do. But I want to do it with proportional editing on. So if I do that, turn O for proportional editing, press S to scale across the z-axis. Then you can see that as I move forward, I actually pull my model, I deform or pinch my model up a little bit. I got to do it carefully because, don't do that again, because I don't want so much influence. Oops. So again, scale across the z-axis. I want to reduce my influence a lot, and then just move these verts in a little bit. And then what I want to do is I want to take the Z key, the Z manipulator arm, the blue one, and I want to pull it up. So you can see I can make it so it's sad mouth, happy mouth, right? Maybe happy, it looks kind of scary too, right? It's going to be a pretty big face, right? And so what this does is it creates geometry for me to do what I want to do. Now, there's different ways of doing this whole thing. We've done it this way, but there's different ways of approaching this problem. Okay, cool. Now, what I want to do is I want to get this center lip here and pull it out, right? So again, I'm going to deselect all, and I want to go into edge select mode, and I want to select this edge by shift right clicking. I want to select all of the edge. If I do another kind of selection, it'll select too much. So one of this, and I want to do the same thing on the top lip at the same time because that might be might save me some time. There we go. And what I want to do now is I want to make sure proportional editing is on. And I'm just taking it from the side here so I can see. I'm going to press the, I'm going to grab the green manipulator arm, the Y manipulator, and just move it out a little bit until the lips kind of, and I'm going to kind of increase my influence a little bit. Not too much because it'll float too much. Just a little bit so it brings it out. Pushes it out so I actually have some kind of weird geometry like this, okay? And it kind of rounded it off. I know it's hard to see from this angle, but it actually kind of did round this area a little bit more, right? Now what I want to do, and I didn't do this again in the first class, is I could bevel. I could bevel this edge even more to make it rounder. And the way to do that is, by the way, if you want to ever look at a command that you don't know how to look up, you don't know where it is in your menus, press the space bar. And if you go to search, so if I go here and I press the space bar to search, then you can see that if I wanted to bevel, right, you can see that it's Control B for the mesh bevel, right? So Control B. And what it allows me to do is add additional geometry there for how much I want to bevel the lips. And notice that there's a bunch of segments, and I can increase the amount of segments for the lips to make it so that there's more segments in here to make it more round. And I can also increase the amount to give that geometry more roundedness. And then if I pull it out with the green, actually, I'm going to undo that change and go back to take proportional editing off just for a second, see the differences. It might be too drastic, but just a little bit pulling out, a little bit. All right, so there we go. We have some lips, a lip area. You can tell that they're lips, all right? And now we could add additional geometry here to make the lips define it a different way, but you can see now that I have kind of some lips that are on the face, and it can look pretty scary, especially this shape is 2 meters wide by 2 meters high. So when it walks down the hall, it'll take up the whole pretty much the whole space. Like, it's pretty big, right? Okay, so cool. But now the head is pretty square, and I want to make it so that it's less square. What I want to do is I want to kind of select Control Tab. Did differently again this morning, but I want to try it this way today. So I want to try to take in the edge, the kind of the corner verts. Oops. Try that again. All right, let's try this on the side and on the bottom. All right, and then what I want to do is just scroll all the way out here. And I want to turn proportional editing on for a second to show you what it does in this scale. So if I do that and I press these in, so I'm pressing the scale button and pressing in, you can see that it don't have a lot of influence because the circle is small. But if I increase the circle, right, so the effect it has is I can literally scale the object in or out. So I'm going to kind of scale the object in just a touch, so it's a little bit more rounded, not that much. So now it's got more of a rounded shape to it at some areas. And now I'm going to turn proportional editing off, so O, and do that again for the edges. So just going to bring those edges kind of in and down. And I want to bring those edges just a touch in. All right, now I want to also choose some edges to round off on the side. So again, a couple ways to do that. I could do beveling, or I could Shift, Alt, and right click. So first I want to just take an edge, so Control Tab to go into edge select mode, Shift, Alt, and right click, right, the edge, and I get this whole edge, right? And then I can do again, I can do the same thing. I can keep proportional editing on by pressing O, the O key, and then what I want to do is I want to kind of, you can kind of recede the face so that it kind of pulls back. And I want to make it so that there's less influence. So you can see how that's pulling the face back. Let's do that a little bit more. So more nose, more rounded face. And same thing on the top now. So I'm going to kind of get the top parts, right? But I want to kind of put it forward. I want to pull the top forward this time. So again, it's Shift, Alt, right-click. If you're using a Mac, it's Shift, Option, right-click. To select the whole edge, right? And again, what I want to do is I want to kind of move this part. Undo that. I want to move just the part that I want by clicking the left mouse button on there and reducing the influence just so to have the part that I want to move. I can move that part. I can move it back to make that kind of effect, or forward to kind of give more of a top part of the head, a bit of a curve. I want to do the same thing for the chin. I want the chin to curve out too, right? So I want to give right click on this one, and then Shift Alt or Shift Option if you're the Mac, right click the bottom part of the object. And again, I'm going to pull this out a little bit. So, and I want to have less influence, as much less influence as possible, just to mess with the chin area, right? And I think, you know what I might want to do, pull this down a little bit. So pull this down, undo. Turn proportional editing off for a second, hold on. Pull this down a bit, make it more of a chin. And then turn proportional editing on and pull this out a little bit to kind of create a face with a bit of a chin that kind of comes out. There we go. This part of the face, this edge, again, I'm going to Shift Alt Option right click, or Shift Alt right click, or Shift Option right click if you're a Mac. And now again, I want to pull this part of the face back. Right, so I want to kind of pull it back this way, right? Just a little bit. But at the same time, push it in from the right. So it kind of gives you that weird looking face. The back of the head, I really don't care too much about, but I want to make it rounded. So I'm going to deselect all, right click on one of the edges, and then Shift Alt right click, or Shift Option right click if you're a Mac. And again, I'm going to scale this in. I'm going to do that. I want to move it in, and move it back. That's a little more rounded. And definitely in the top here, I'm going to select this edge. So again, Alt, Shift, Alt right click, and then move this edge in. The bottom I'm not going to touch. Right. Maybe what I want to do also is if I want to make it so that it looks like that there's a hairline or something, I can also Shift Alt right click the whole edge, so I can kind of do one of these. So Shift Alt right click that whole edge loop, and then I can scale, so I can kind of scale that part in a little bit. Back, take care. There's my face. Pretty scary. Okay. I can also put horns on the guy and do all kinds of stuff, but I think this is good. All right. So you should have a face that looks kind of like this, a big face. So why did I do this? I mean, is it useful? I wanted to really talk about proportional editing here. That's where I wanted to go and show you the difference between regular editing, where you move verts around, and proportional editing. Okay, now the use of loop tools. So what I want to do is I want to pull out the arm from the right side, right? And to do this, I want to kind of select an area and make it round. First, I need a little bit more geometry, so Control R, just to give me enough geometry on this side. Again, I'm only adding geometry when I need it, or when I feel I need it. I want to do Control Tab and go into Face Select mode, and I want to select some faces here that's going to represent my shoulder and my arm. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, actually I can use the Circle Select mode, so I can select the area that I want my arm to be in by pressing C and then pressing Escape, so to escape from that selection mode. There's my arm. This is where the arm is going to be, but it's square. And if I was to take this out now, right, if I was to extrude this out now, it's going to look like this, square. And that doesn't look really organic, right? So what I want to do instead is I want to make this rounded, and I could do that with loop tools. So if you go down to on the left-hand side, in your toolbar on the left, there's an area that's loop tools. We turn that add-on on, and if you click on circle, it makes it into a circle altogether like this. All right. And what I can do is I can kind of scale in a little bit or scale out, depending on what kind of arm I want. I'm going to scale in just a touch more. And now what I'm going to do is flatten. So if you notice, there's a flatten command too. And that'll make sure that it's going to come out completely flattened to the side, right? And then when I press E to extrude and then enter, I have extra geometry. And then I can press E to extrude again, and you can see that I can pull this will be where my shoulder is going to be, right in here. What I want to do is I want to do the same thing. So E to extrude and then enter, and then I'm going to pull the shoulder out just a little bit more, so extrude. But I want to taper this shoulder off a little bit more, so I'm going to say scale. So I'm going to scale the shoulder down. Notice I'm doing this with proportional editing mode on. And here, what I want to do is I want to turn proportional editing off this time, and I want to go back into edge select mode, and I want to select this edge. So Shift Alt right click, and then press S to scale this part in. So I have this kind of shape. All right. Now this isn't very exciting, I understand, but what I can do here is I can press Control, so I can Shift Alt right click or Shift Option right click, and then Control B, and I can add a little bit of bevel in here, right? I can add a little bit of bevel in here to kind of bevel this off and make this a little bit of a softer shoulder than the way it was before. Now notice I have 3 cuts. I can make that more if I want to make it rounder, right? And what I can do is I can press Control Tab and go into face select mode and then select all these faces. And again, what I want to do is kind of scale in a little bit. Scale in a little bit. Make sure it's flatten. And then what I want to do is just pull it out so that the bicep would be about right here, something like that. That's the bicep. The bicep will go into an elbow. So I want to press E to extrude and enter. E to extrude and pull it out a little bit, just a touch. So that's half the elbow. I want to scale out. So I want to scale up. S to scale. I want to press E to extrude and enter, and then E to extrude and pull out the elbow. And then press S to scale down. So I have kind of this elbow area here. Okay. I want to press E to extrude and enter, and then E again, and then pull out my forearm this time. But this should be considerably thinner. And what I'm going to do here is two steps. Control Tab to go back into edge select mode. Select this edge, and then Shift Alt right click, and then S to scale. And then what I'm going to do is this edge here has to the same thing has to happen to this edge. So I'm going to go to right click and then Shift Alt or Shift Option right click for the Mac. Actually, I need to select this whole area here, the faces. Let's go back because it won't work properly. I can use C to circle select the faces really quickly, and then make sure if I selected anything by accident, deselect that other face that I selected by accident. So right click, Shift right click to that other face. There we go. Again, make sure it's flat. That's important, right? So flatten that area. And what I want to do here is scale in, so scale down. So scale back down, right? To a taper, right? I want to make a wrist area. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. E to extrude, enter. Then E to extrude out a little bit. And then S to scale up. And then E to extrude and enter, and then E to extrude the hand. Right, so let's say the hand's going to be something like this. And then S to scale down. The hand's going to be almost like a tool. Actually, let's just add some, before I do that, let's just make it the same size. And Control R to add a cut where the thumb is going to be. And then Control Tab and go into face select mode, C to circle select, so I can circle this entire area again. Escape. And then S to scale in from that area. A little bit. Now I'm going to also scale down across the Z axis, so S and then press Z immediately. Just kind of make it so that it is flatter. And I'm also going to E to extrude enter and then pull that area out. So kind of like full fingers. In here, I want a thumb to come out, so I'm going to press this, right click to select this. And then the same thing goes with this one, these two areas here. I'm going to press E to extrude enter and then pull this out immediately. Kind of create this ridge. Now from the top, if I look at it from the top, so let's go to the top view. You can see that it needs a little bit of tapering. I'm going to go into just grab this edge here. So I'm going to deselect all, select this edge by changing to edge select mode. And then just pull this edge in. And then pull this edge out. And if you want to go crazy, you can do more cuts and separate the thumb. I'm not going to do that here. And same thing with the fingers of the hand. I'm not going to do that. All right, but so we have kind of an arm, kind of. And it looks funny because it's kind of short, right? If you want to make it longer, you can. Usually the arm's hanging down halfway down the legs, and the way to extend that would be to actually select this whole area. So if I press the Z key, to go into wireframe mode, deselect all, make sure that's all deselected. And what I could do is deselect the area that I want to scale, and then scale it across the x-axis only. Kind of make it this way, and then move it across the x-axis only. So you can make that a little bit more proportionate. If you wanted to add more width to anything, you can totally do that by scaling. Like if I want to make the bicep look like it's a bicep, I can Control R, and I can make some cuts on the bicep. So maybe a starting point for the bicep and an ending point for the bicep. And then if I want to select that middle area there, I can go into front view. I can go into wireframe mode, deselect all, use the B select, go back into, face select mode, and just deselect that whole area there. So in the middle. So box select. There it is. Go back into out of wireframe mode, back into here. And then I can scale this up. We're going to make it look like a little bit better. It doesn't look as organic. It looks more mechanical because of the way we're doing it. But again, you can continue adding more geometry. Right now, by the way, I have 1,100 vertices. That's approximately how much I have. And you can see that on the top. Stats. All right, cool. So I got my arm, and I want to get my legs going in the same fashion. So I want to kind of pull my legs up from the bottom, but I want a bit of a neck first. I found that I have more success when I had a bit of a neck and a body. So let us just select areas down here. So deselect all, you circle select to kind of select the area that I want for my, almost like more of a kind of a something to support the head a little bit. I'm just going to select all those, deselect, the escape, and then shift right click to deselect that area that I don't want. And what I want to do here is I want to pull this down a little bit. So E to extrude, enter, and then E to extrude down, right, to kind of give me this ridge. And then maybe if I want to, I can scale this whole thing in a little bit, right? It's a little bit wide, but I'm not going to do that. What I want to do now is pull out the leg. So I want to do something like what I did with the arm, but I have enough geometry down here. I don't need more. I'm just going to circle the area that I want to potentially get the leg from. So somewhere in here, maybe even wider. Maybe make some really thick legs at the top, like a leg stock more than anything else. All right, so there's my, oops, let's do that again. There's my legs, and you can actually increase the circle, the selection mode by scrolling in and out, but then press escape to get out of that. All right, so this is where the leg is going to form out, but it's kind of taking up this part. Maybe what I want to do is add a little bit more geometry here, or deselect this part. Let's deselect that part instead. So circle select, move in slower, and then shift left click to deselect. There we go. That might be better. Okay, there we go. So I want to flatten the selection. So flatten first. And then I want to circle it. So I'm going to make a circle out of it again using loop tools. And then squeezing that in a little bit tighter. So I've got circles. And then I'm going to extrude down. So you can see that I've got, these little shorts pretty much. And for this guy, and the top part of his thigh. Now they're going to taper a little bit, so I'm going to press S to scale and scale in just a touch. And move it a little bit more. And I want knees, right? I want knees to appear there, so I want to kind of E to extrude, enter, and then E to extrude into half the knee. And then scale up. And then E to extrude, enter, and then E to extrude for the other half of the knee. And then scale in. So that's the top part of his leg. And now E to extrude, enter, and then E to extrude all the way down. Again, this guy's maybe too far. Move this back. And then it's kind of, I want to taper in at the bottom. And where the knee is, I want to taper that in too. So again, I'm going to go Control Tab to go into Edge Select mode, select this edge, and then Shift Alt right click, and then scale that in. There we go. At the bottom, I want to make some feet. I want to make some feet here. So deselect all. I want to use Control Tab to go into Face Select mode. Try that again. And then press C to circle select the bottom as much as possible without going outside the edges. There we go. Escape. I want to press E to extrude, enter, and then E to extrude down. Make that last part of the feet. I want to look at them from the front. Okay, and what's happened is I've made this this area here, and I want to pull only the front faces forward to make the foot. So again, I'm going to just deselect all, use circle select, and just select the front faces, whatever I can see. Let's try that again. Deselect or take it off selection mode. That's pretty good. E to extrude, enter, and then see if I can just pull it out. And here's the feet. Okay, so I've got my feet going on. But the legs look a little funny this way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them out a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this part. I want my knee forward and out a little bit more. So again, I'm going to deselect all, going to Z for wireframe mode, B select my whole knee area. Now I'm going to use proportional editing. So I'm going to turn proportional editing on by pressing the O button. And if I pull it out with more influence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the knees kind of bending forward. And if I look at it from the side, I want to get the knees kind of going this way, so I'm going to kind of pull this out this way. So he's a little bit bow-legged. There we go. Okay. And I think that's good. I think that's enough. So I got a funny little creature. If you really want to make him crazy looking, give him some horns on top of his head, right? And again, that's not difficult to do. Deselect all. I want to select an area where I want the horns on the top right of his head here, right? Let's say this area. And then I'm going to go back to Loop Tools and make that area rounded. So again, Loop Tools. I want to make that flat and circle. And I want to pull this out, so I'm going to press E to extrude, E to extrude enter, and then E to pull it out. Taper it, S. Move it, right? And so you have a creature that kind of looks like this. Pretty scary, especially in VR, right? All right, so not really too cool, but I wanted to kind of present some more tools for you in Blender. This is what this was about. This wasn't about making a perfect shape or a man or anything. For that, what I would use is a reference diagram, and then make the shape that I want by using the tools I've just shown you: proportional editing, loop cut and slide, knife cutting, all that kind of stuff to make my shape as proportional as possible, right? But here, what I've got is something that I can use, to kind of take into Unity. So a couple of things I want to do here. I want to select all, and I want to remove doubles. That's why I didn't do this morning. I want to remove doubles. And this way I removed 192 verts, because there's a lot of double verts, because I've gone E to extrude enter, E to extrude pull out, E to extrude enter. Every time I do that, I add more geometry. So I've taken out a bunch of vertices. I also would like to be safe, I want to apply the modifier now. So I'm going to go tab into object mode. I'm going to apply the modifier, and then I'm going to add another modifier called, which is going to be triangulate. I want to triangulate my shape. So, okay, so why am I doing this? Why am I triangulating? Why am I doing all this kind of stuff? Well, because, here it is, if I triangulate, and if I apply the modifier, let's apply this, you can see that I'm going to have a model now that has a lot more geometry, but everything has been triangulated, okay? So from a deformation perspective, I have a higher chance for it to deform a little better. Now, what I've just done has added a lot of geometry. I've got 2,300 verts. I'm still under 5,000, which is pretty cool, right? But the more of these I add in, then the more it becomes a higher polygon count. All right, cool. So this is my guy. I want to export him. And there's a tool. Now, normally what we would do is this. From this point on, what I want to do is, hey, I want to rig this guy, right? So I have to put some kind of bones inside the model, right? Now, it goes beyond the scope of today's session to do that, manual rigging, right? What I mean by rigging is literally creating bones for the character inside that are inside the model. And the bones would have influence over the geometry in terms of deforming the geometry, right? So I create bones inside the model, I weight paint the bones, right? And then when I move the bone, the geometry would deform. That's the essence of mesh skinning, is what we call it, right? But what I want to try and do here is, instead of having this mesh skinning happening and me doing it manually, I want to use an automatic rigging system, right? And it's free to use. I put the link up on Slack, but we're going to do something. We're going to use a tool called Mixamo. So please go to mixamo.com. No, I wanted to do it again with you guys. That's why. I'll do it now. After I'm done, I'll upload the character. If you guys want to use my character, which is really ugly, I definitely will do that. So again, this is the model I made earlier today. But what I want to do is, this tool allows me to use motion capture that's already been done for us, right? Because the way we do it, 3D animation nowadays in video games is we have real people wear a a mocap suit, a motion capture suit. They're inside of, let's say, some kind of auditorium or a gymnasium kind of size area, especially Ubisoft has something like that, right? And they put these tiny receptor points all over the person's body, right, on the mocap suit. And when they move, the tiny receptors actually create a motion, a natural motion for the person, and they record where the bones would be, how the mesh would deform if you were making a three-dimensional mesh. So what it does is actually records bones to deform the mesh. So you can apply this rig that's been captured by someone moving in real time, in real life. They move around and do all these, might be an actor that moves around and does all these poses, right? Holding a gun, firing a gun, falling down, jumping, running around, doing all these things that we do. And then we take we have an algorithm that captures their motion capture. Usually we use something like Motion Builder, and we can create bones that we can use for any rig, for any mesh. So I can have the same different meshes with the same motion that I've captured in the studio, right? Now that's a lot of work. Can you imagine? I have some kind of rig and mesh deformation for firing a gun. I have another one for running, another one for falling, another one for being hit, another one for ducking, another one for jumping, another one for jumping with a gun, jumping without a gun, all this kind of stuff. So it's a lot of recording, and it's really expensive to do. Well, luckily, Adobe has provided a free tool that we have a bunch of motion capture data that they've done for us, right? And give us an example that we can apply to our model and auto-rig it without having to do any kind of bones or anything like that in Blender. So let's do that today with our model. So 2 steps I want to do. First, I want to go back to Blender, and I want to save my Blender model. I'll save it so you guys can have it if you really want it. But this is a good example for you guys to see. So I'm going to call this creature. We'll call it enemy. Okay, we'll just make a difference. So I'll say this is the enemy model, right? And enemy.blend. I'm going to save it. And I'm just going to dump this blend file on Slack. So I'm going to go back to the desktop here for us. And I'm going to go take this enemy blend, pull up Slack. Okay, so pull up Slack. Let's minify this. But that's the opposite of what I wanted to do. I wanted to make this smaller is what I wanted. There we go. And just pull this into our Slack. This enemy blend model. So if you haven't had a chance to do it or you couldn't follow along, please grab this. It's a good experience of how to do this in Mixamo. Now to use Mixamo, you have to subscribe, or at least, sign up for this free Adobe account, okay? We'll talk about subscription and the advantages later when it comes to this. Not because I want you to buy Adobe, but there's some really cool tools you can get by having a subscription service. As students, it costs $29 US a year. It's still quite expensive. Sorry, did I say a year? A month. $29 a month. Yeah, it may not have the exact stuff that I have though. As when you subscribe properly, you have a lot more things sometimes. Like for example, not just Photoshop and Illustrator, it has a bunch of other stuff. The whole Creative Suite is what you need. If you can do that, wonderful. Then hopefully you'll have what I'm going to show you later. All right, so yeah, so I've got this enemy blend file. I'm going to go into here, and what I want to do now is export this as an FBX. Export this as an FBX. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Export. I'm going to go to FBX. This is built into Blender. On the left, please click Selected Objects Only. This one, Selected Objects. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to deselect everything except for mesh. So all I care about is the mesh. I don't care about other things. Not camera, no lamps, no armatures, nothing. Just mesh. And then press Export. And I'm going to export on my desktop. What this does is it creates a file that's compatible with Mixamo. There's my enemy FBX. And I want to go back to the web. Here's Mixamo. And I'm going to upload my character. So upload. I'm going to click this little button here to select my character model. And here's my enemy FBX. And click Open. And what this is going to do is it's going to load my model up on Mixamo. All right? And this is what it would look like. Again, if you have, I just put my model on Slack. If you want to try this out, it's totally possible. You can do the same thing I'm doing. One thing I need to do, though, in order for me to make this work, is I need to be able to see the bottom. Notice that there's a next button. I can also rotate my model. The way we do the auto rigging is like this. I position things in my model to show where the chin of my model is, where the groin of my model is, right? And the wrists, the elbows, and the knees. And then it uses an algorithm to auto rig my model, okay? It's only as good as the model I gave it, and I gave it a non-humanoid model. So it'll kind of rig weird in the beginning. I'll show you the differences. So if I put my chin where it's supposed to be, which is somewhere up here, right? And my groin is right here. That's a bad thing, right? So if I put my groin in there, it's pretty close to my chin, right? Because my head is the model, right? So I'm going to have a bit of issues. You're going to see the issues in a second. I want my right wrist. My right wrist is going to be over here. I got kind of little short hands, right? And I got my right elbow, right, which is probably in here. And I got my right knee, which is over here. Now, depending on where you put these control points, you're going to get a different effect for your model. I'm just going to try and put it so it's right in the middle. And they give you a little indicator of what it looks like over here. So this is where I put it. Now, if I put it like this, notice that they're together, I'm going to have a weird deformation, a really weird deformation, right? Because it's going to think that my chin and my groin are almost next to each other. So if I want to turn my head, it's going to twist my head. This head is going to actually be twisted. It's going to twist my geometry. You're going to see what I'm talking about in a second. If I click, by the way, down here where it says level of detail, I don't care about fingers. So I don't have fingers on my mesh. So you can have, I want to make my mesh, my bones, instead of 65 bones, I'm going to use only 25 bones. And if I click next, if I did this correctly, right, it'll start to auto rig my model, right? Now, it may not look what I want, and I can always go back and reposition those things that I put into play so it rigs a little better. And that takes a bit of time, but if everything goes well, it shouldn't be that bad. Again, kind of an ugly shape, and we didn't put any texture on it. We could add texture to this thing. It also can be transported up to Mixamo. Here we go. Let's see how it looks. All right, so that looks really weird, right? Take a look. It actually chops the whole head kind of in a weird shape, right? And if you look and see what happens, even the horns kind of look around, like as if it's like part of the eye stalks or something, right? So something's wrong there. I don't think this is right. So I'm going to go back. Again, because our model is not, I'm going to take this. I knew this was going to happen. I have the same thing happened before. But what if I take this and put it near the top? So near the top of my head, here's the head, and here's the groin now. You're going to see it twist the whole head, but it won't be as bad. The deformation won't be as crazy. Let's make sure that our fingers, no fingers, and click next. Again, for this model, it's going to be weird anyway, right? But it's going to appear that it's something we can use. And again, what this process is doing is using an algorithm to auto-rig. That's what it's doing. All right, so what does this look like now? The legs don't look so bad, but the head is kind of really messed up. You can see that the horns are kind of twisting more because it's expecting that there's going to be a head to the model. This is the chest area equivalent, right? And this is this. So there is no head. It's just this. And I'm perfectly fine with this. It's kind of weird looking, but it's okay, right? Huh? It's kind of a weird thing. It could be scary in a game, right? Which is really what we want. It's kind of weird. Imagine if this thing was, especially if the head was made of pure, I don't know, meat, muscles, and blood, and all this kind of stuff. You would see it like really deformed that way. It could look really awesome, like really scary, right? I mean, again, I could have paid more attention to some of the level of detail that I gave the geometry, but I'm going to click next now. And if I click next, the 3D character gets uploaded. And if I go to my model, you can see that I have my character in T-pose. Here's a character in T-pose. So what I want to do is I want to get this pose as bind pose. I want to think about this as the basic pose. Typically, T-pose is your arms at the side. That's why I made the character that way. And by the way, you guys can download models like this where the arms are at the side. There's also A pose where the arms are down here. right? Those are two common poses. So T-pose is, I think, easier to use with auto rigging in Mixamo. But here in T-pose, I want to look for T-pose. So when I say kind of like T-pose, you can search for caps. So this one here looks like a scarecrow because this is what I want to do. I want to kind of get this model in T-pose. Now, if I do this, what is it going to do? It's going to automatically put bones into my model for me, right? So I don't have to do any of the bone work myself. It's going to be 25 bones in my model, and I can use that in Blender, auto rigging, right? If I click download, what it'll do is I can choose a format for downloading. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to change your format from FBX to FBX for Unity, because we're going to use Unity, right? And if I click save or download, right, I'm going to choose frames 30, keyframe reduction none, with skin. And if I click download, what it's going to do is it's going to create an FBX download with the proper format for Unity. So enemy at T-pose, right? I'm going to put this on the desktop and press save. So this is my bind pose. This is the default pose that I'm going to start my model at, like this, okay? And then what I want to do is I want to have an idle state. Let's find idle for my model. So I'm going to go into model, idle. And if you look here, I can find an idle state. So I got to find a model that's compatible with my model for idle. Okay, so where I have an idle state, maybe like this one, or maybe with my arms out a little bit because my arms are kind of out like this. So he's looking around. Right, this is my idle state. And let's see how you can check it out. You can see what this is like the model, the idle. He's looking around there, and he'll keep on repeating over and over again. Or I can make it a little bit more subtle, so he can just have some. He's just like this in idle, and if I zoom in, you can see that there's a slight movement in idle. Right? There's a bit of movement there. You see that? That's idle pose, and to me, that's okay. So idle. If you want to have some breathing in idle, you can choose another one that has breathing in idle. If you scroll down, there might be one that has some more breathing or more motion. There's tons of them like that, right? Depending on what you want, right? Tons and tons of them, actually. How about this one? That might be even better. That's a little better. There's more movement here. I can increase the arm space in idle, so I can kind of move it so that the arms are wider. So you can modify the rig a little bit in idle. Now I want to save it. So I'm going to click download. And I'm going to say with skin for Unity and click download. And what it's going to do is going to rename my object with idle. So it's going to say, as an example, enemy at, instead of dwarf idle, I'm going to say enemy at idle. FBX, save. So I've got that one too. So I got idle mode. I got idle and I got my T-pose. Okay, let's make him walk. So I want to make him walk. So here's walk. And there's a walk like this. Let's say his arms are out more. And I want to walk him in place. So I don't want him to walk around. So he's going to walk like this, kind of deforming in a weird way. All right, there we go. He's walking. That's pretty cool. I can make his stride length less and his speed less too, so he's not walking so fast. And I can make his arm space out a little bit more if I want to. Okay, there we go. He's kind of striding. And that's pretty cool for walk. So I'm going to click download. And I'm going to click download this one, and it's going to ask me to rename it. So it's going to say enemy at walk or walking, FBX. All right, what about if he wants to punch? Maybe he's going to come at you. He's going to punch you, right? So I want to select that too. So I'm going to go to here and go punch, right? So you can see that there's different kinds of punching, right? So let's go maybe an uppercut. Let's see this. Okay, or how about a straight punch? All right, that's pretty cool. So he's punching. Right? And if I want to go further, you can do the arm space or the range. I can increase the range so it kind of does more of a punch. Bam, right? More of a hook. Right? There we go. And the target height, I can make him punch your head more, so towards the top of your head. Right? right? One of those. And then that's good. So I'm going to kind of save that one. Enemy punching. And you know, the enemy is going to also fall down. He's going to fall down, right? And he's also going to get hit. So if I say hit, he took a hit, right? He's going to take a hit. Like maybe he's going to take a head hit. So here's a hit reaction. Let's try some hit reactions. So he gets hit. Oh, right? Oh, right? That's a pretty good hit reaction. So he's getting hit. I want to download that one. So save that one. We'll say just hit, not head hit, because he is a head. And we'll also say he's going to fall down. So he not only gets hit, but he falls. So let's see what kind of fall he can do, right? So let's say he falls down. Let's try falling. You know, he gets after falling, after being hit. So let's try this out. So, oh, right? And then he gets hit. Let's take a look at that. So he falls, right? And I'm going to download that one too. And save that one. Okay, so I've got all these poses, and I think this is a good start. Now, you can imagine if you download stuff from the asset store, sometimes you'll just download the model in T-pose. You may not have any bones or, you know, whatever model you want. You can bring them into Mixamo, put bones, auto-rig them, and then keep the, you know, the models you might get may have, you know, materials and textures and everything ready to go. And all you have to do is bring this stuff in to make it work. Let's pause the video because this part in auto-rigging is done. And what I want to go do next is importing or animating in 3D in Unity.